Guys, welcome to a video that I honestly should have been uploading more. I apologize first of all. But yeah, I'm trying a little bit of something different today. So yeah, today I'm going to be talking about cheating commanders. Essentially Magic the Gathering commanders that allow you to play spells for free or basically free. I will be ranking based on my opinion on how good they are. Now, do keep in mind, I am not a competitive player when it comes to stuff like this. I am also not the biggest expert in the game. But yeah, this is just my general opinion on this. So, first things first. Animar, Soul the Elements. I honestly have to put this in A. It can be really good. If you have something like Eldrazi or some good stuff, and just in general, it works well with Hydras, Tyranids, Eldrazi. It works good with a bunch of stuff, as it reduces the cost like a butt ton if you could get the right setups. It's a really good commander, and honestly, you know what? I'm gonna just pull up files, and I'm gonna just Animar. Here we go. Yeah, this is basically Animar. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you put a +1/+1 counter on him, and it also has protection from white and black. And also creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each +1/+1 counter on him. This guy is really good. I don't think there's much else to say about him. Next up is this guy, who, I believe this is Arthur, Marigold Knight. Basically, whenever you and at least one other creature attacks, you look at the top 6 cards of your library, and then you put a creature card from among those 6 cards onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Now you put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. You then return the creature to its owner's hand at the end of combat. This can be really good. It's basically like flashing a bunch of stuff out. However, I do gotta say it is limited. Very limited. Because if you're trying to go for bigger spells, like, let's just take Blightsteel Colossus as a prime example. You don't want to spend another 12 mana just to bring it back out. Unless you have something that can put it back on the top of your library, so you can consistently get your Blightsteel Colossus out. Then yeah, you're not cheating anything out. It is very much limited. However, and top it all of that off with the fact that you're not in green, meaning that the only thing you have really going for you is like Jessica's Will. And even then, what are the chances you're going to have someone have like 16 or 12 cards in their hand? I'm sorry, I just don't consider this to be on par with Animar. I do admit it can be kind of scary to have something be flashed out like that, but I feel like afterward you're just going to be stuffed with cards, and if you don't have a way of keeping that max hand size or reanimating stuff, which, oh look, you're not in black either. So all in all, I think I'll put this in B. It's definitely terrifying, but not as good as Animar. Okay, it looks like the next one up is Entla Palani. Basically, you spend 2, tap it to create a 0/1 green egg creature with token with Defender. Whenever an egg you control dies, you reveal cards on the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. and put it onto the battlefield, and put the rest of those on the bottom of your library in a random order. Oh boy. Yeah, this can go big. For one, you don't have to have anything in your hand in order for this to work. It's just a thing. However, I do admit it is limited in the fact that in Naya there isn't a whole lot of sacrificing things. So you're going to have to rely on a variety of methods just to kill your own guys. So but all in all, I think it is definitely on par with Animar. And on top of that, it can get going faster, a little bit faster than Animar. Like, yeah, okay, you play some cards, maybe turn 2 you get turn 1 you have green, tap that for Birds of Paradise. Nice. Next turn you get a Soul Ring, tap that for 2 ramp spells or ramps or just in general. You can get this out and going pretty fast. You have more options than Animar. So I think I might actually, but I still honestly, you know what? Let's put it in S tier. This is pretty good. And on top of that, it's a lot more flexible than Animar, who is just basically cost reduction. Antla is basically you can run dragons or just anything you want as long as it's Naya. So yeah, next one we have Barl and Harizev. When you've cast your first instant in sports, your spell each turn, you may cast a spell with lesser mana value that shares a card type with it from your hand without paying its mana cost. If you don't, you create a legendary creature. Oh, it doesn't do much. So, yeah, this is definitely a good card. But I'm gonna be real with you. I don't know if this is worth it long term. Or, like, it's short term, I guess is probably the better word to be saying. Because short term, assuming you get this out, what, turn 3? Or turn 2? Okay, so what are you going to cast turn 3 that really gets the full value out of this? You're getting a monkey. Cool. The monkey doesn't do squat. It's a 2-1. What's that going to do? Dude, the most I can really... I just don't really know how you can make this work unless you cast a big instant and sorcery. But even then, if you cast a big instant or sorcery, you're kind of defeating the whole point of, hey, I want to cheat something out. Yeah, you're going to cheat out something like a Shock or Scouring Sands. When, even then, those are barely run in Commander, so... Yeah, honestly, I think it's probably going in... I think there's potential for it to be in B, but I think overall it's a C tier. It's just not good. Maybe it's good in other situations, but for the purpose of cheating things out, it's not the best. Next up, we have Braids, not the Game Changer one. This one is actually oh boy, this one's pretty good. Good. You get to put an artifact, creature, or land card from their hand onto the battlefield on your upkeep. Issue is, each player gets to do that, and you're only doing this once per turn. And a minor nitpick is that you're also missing cast triggers, but regardless, I think this one is a little bit more consistent, given that you're not working with, like, it's up to you if you want to play something. Like, you don't have to put the Bladesteel Colossus on the battlefield if you think someone has a way to get rid of it. So, overall, I think Braids is just a pretty good card. I honestly think that Braids, it's held back a little bit since you're only doing it like once per turn. However, if you do put this in like an Obika deck, this definitely, yeah, that definitely will work. Yeah. So I think, but as a commander, I think it's held back a little bit. And also, but so I think I'll put it in B. It's pretty good though. Not gonna lie. All right. I'm assuming this guy is Bruno, Light of Alabaster. When it attacks or blocks, you may attach it to it any number of auras on the battlefield, and you may put onto the battlefield attached to it any number of aura cards that could enchant it from your graveyard and or hand. This is a bit more of a unique cheat kind of one, because it relies on auras specifically. And while that doesn't really seem like a big deal, there is an Eldrazi card. I believe I actually have it like somewhere. Maybe no, that's it doesn't look like I can get to the tab. My recording thing is blocking the way. But basically, there is an Eldrazi aura that basically gives the creature 10 plus 10 plus 10. And it costs about 8 mana. So, yeah, something like that, and compared with something like this, that can get pretty strong. On top of that, it's from the graveyard and your hand. So, even if it gets removed, all you have to do is replay it, and all of a sudden, unless that graveyard gets your graveyard gets exiled, you are just not affected by it. So honestly, a pretty powerful card. It is limited to auras though, so I don't think it really goes into S tier. But honestly, I would put it in A tier. I think Animar does a little bit better with creatures though, so. Next we have Chainer, Dementia Master. All nightmares get +1/+1. Not to mention, you spend 3 black mana, pay 3 life, and put a target creature. You may put a target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. This can be pretty powerful, especially with the fact that it doesn't tap to do this. Whew! All you have to do is pay 3 life, and if you play your cards right, no pun intended, you can easily gain that life back. Valgavoth is probably the best example I can give. It has lifelink, and it costs 9 mana. Now, all you have to do is discard that or put it into the graveyard, and all of a sudden, wow, wham bam, thank you ma'am, this thing is all of a sudden onto the battlefield and is a nightmare in addition to its other types. And I'll put out a pun here and say that this is a nightmare to deal with, especially since it's also buffing those same creatures. Overall, I think this is also an S tier. This definitely has a whole lot of situations where it can be useful. Oh boy, I recognize that one. Chiscoria, Forge Tyrant. So, whew. Affinity for artifacts, and whenever it attacks, exile the top 5 cards of your library. You may cast an artifact spell from among them this turn. If you do, it has affinity for artifacts. Okay. This is very limited. If you just chuck a bunch of your artifacts into your deck, honestly, I think, I don't think it's gonna go well for you. On top of that, since you're exiling 5 cards from the top of your library every time, you can go through your deck relatively fast. And given that it's also very limited to 1 artifact per 1 turn, it's a little bit more limited in its cheating ability. So, honestly, I don't think that Chiscoria is S or even A tier. I will give it to it. Being able to cheat out large artifacts is pretty strong, so I'll put it in B tier. Oh boy, this is another interesting one. Cody. I don't even know how to say this. It's Codex guy. You can't cast permanent spells. Okay, that's already a huge downside. You basically spend 4, tap it, you add Wooburg, and when you cast your next spell this turn, exile cards on the top of your library until you exile an instant or sorcery card with lesser mana value. Essentially, it's a very specific cascade. And until end of turn, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Each other card exiled this way gets put on the bottom of your library in a random order. I think I've already made my stance on cards like this, so just showing them down in C tier. Actually, it goes into... I think it's safe in C tier. I feel like it's just a worse version of this, since you can't play permanent spells. Like, how are you gonna win? What are you gonna block with? This thing doesn't have indestructible. It is just a creature. It is really easy to remove. If you remove it yourself, okay, yeah, now you can play permanent spells, but if you want to really maximize it, you probably want to play a bunch of spells that give out creature tokens. And honestly, I think it might be a bit spicy for a commander, so I just don't think I could put it higher than C. I'm sorry. Next up is Jero and Hazaret. Okay. As long as you have 1 or fewer cards in hand, the Jero and Hazaret has Vigilance and Haste whenever they attack. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may exile a legendary creature card from among them, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Until end of turn, you may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost. That is really strong. Albeit, you are limited to 1 card per turn. But there's no limit to the mana cost that has to be. And overall, I think it's a really good card. Alright, stuff a couple legendary creatures in there, or just go mono, just only use legendary creatures, and it can work out for you really well. So honestly, I do think it is pretty limited, but hold on, wait a minute. If I remember correctly, let me just pull up that image again real quick. I want to make sure something. Yeah, it's on attack trigger. So, I guess you could combine it with Ishin, 2 heavens and 1 as a card. But it's just so limited that I think it deserves to. I think it's more of a B tier. I'm just gonna say that now. Next one, Eladamari. Korvac Dole. Okay. Yeah, in terms of cheating things out, I'm just gonna let you guys read the card. But, yeah, First off, you're sacrificing essentially 2 untapped creatures, which I guess isn't a big a deal, because you can just tap 2 mana dorks, or tap, or just tap, random, or just get creature tokens to tap. But unless you have a way of untapping him, you only get to do this once per turn. However, you do get a bit of top deck manipulation, and there are ways of untapping it. However, I do think a good chunk of those are in blue. There might be some lands that are not in blue that allow you to untap them, or just maybe artifacts. I honestly think this has potential, but at the moment, I feel like since it's so limited that it can only be placed at the top of B tier. Actually, you know what? I'll order these. And what I think is the top of B tier here. Alright. Oh boy, here comes a collab. Here. Elian Allen. Huh? Paleontologist. Exile a creature card from your graveyard. Discover X, where X is the mana value of the exiled card. Activate only as a sorcery. Okay, give them credit. The only ones that really utilize graveyard manipulation here are green and blue. And even then, that's mainly sorceries, and I guess green deals with permanence. But regardless, yeah, exiling a creature card from your graveyard. This means you want to have high mana value stuff in your graveyard regardless. But the thing is, they don't really have any good discard outlets here. So, there isn't a whole lot I can really say of stuff you can put in here. Also, you can only do this once per turn, and you're not guaranteed to get a specific creature or permanent unless you have something like Sensei's Divining Top. Honestly, I think this, and also, but since it has to tap in order for this to activate, but since it's in blue, I think it's decent, since there's a bunch of stuff in blue, like I could untap your creatures. Irith of the Healing House, just to name one off the top of my head. But yeah, Discover X. So, I feel like this, but it's also, you're losing graveyard value by every time you activate this ability. Unless you have a way of bringing a card back from exile, which there's only a few cards out there that can do that. Like, I think there's only 3 in the entirety of Magic that can do that. Yeah, basically, I think it's high A. I don't think it's good as Eladamari, but I think it is definitely really good. Next up is Essica, or I guess Prismatic Bridge would be the one you would use. I don't think I have the art for the backside, so bear with me. But from what I remember, basically, at your upkeep, you reveal cards on the top of your library until you reveal a creature or planeswalker card. And then you put that onto the battlefield. That's it. It's really good, though. This is really good. The fact that you're doing this on every upkeep, and the fact that you could probably increase that amount using something like Obeka. I honestly think that as a commander, this is really good. And on top of that, it's Wooburg, so you can run Obeka in this deck. It's definitely a good choice. So honestly, given its potential, and just overall its popularity, and the fact that you can get some pretty good planeswalkers out there, I think it's a good A tier. By itself, however, I do think it is pretty limited. So that's why I don't think it's S tier. It needs other cards in order to support it. Oh boy, here's an interesting one. Atali Primal Conqueror. Unless you have something to repeat ETBs, which is usually in blue or white. Yeah, you're only activating that ETB trigger once. And to top it all off, you might want, it's preferable when it comes to Atali to just transform it. There's no reason to try only this. If you want to try only this, there's a different Atali for that. So, all I have to say about this is that in terms of cheating commanders, which is what we're ranking this by, I think it's probably D tier. You're only activating it once. I might put it in C tier because there is no limit. However, you also have the possibility of hitting lands or just stuff that's not useful. So yeah. Oh, speaking of our tally, there you go. Tali Primal Storm. Whenever it attacks, exile the top card of each player's library. Then you may cast any number of those spells from among those cards without paying their mana costs. This is repeatable. This is actually pretty good. In fact, this can be increased with extra combats. This is definitely a higher potential than Primal Conqueror. And given that red has a bunch of stuff that gives extra combats, I do have to say that this is probably low A tier. Here, it suffers from the same problem as Prismatic Bridge. Next up is Ezio, Auditor de Ferenz. Basically, all your assassins have free running, which is the main part, but you also have a win con if you manage to deal combat damage with him. So yeah, yeah, you are limited to assassin spells. I'll admit, it's basically assassin tribal, but so you're not putting something out like a Blightsteel Colossus. But since you're in Wooburg, there is a ley line that can change creature types. You get that out there, or just try to get it out there as soon as possible. You're basically guaranteed that assassin spells that you basically doing anything to get creatures out. But given that how limited it is, I do gotta say, and assassins aren't the most expensive in terms of mana cost cards anyway. So I gotta say it's probably above the Paleontologists, but I think Eladamari is a little bit more consistent and and it's not limited. Speaking of limited, first sliver. Oh boy. Hold on. Let me just. Oh. Okay, I hit a button I shouldn't have hit. Anyway, first sliver. Cascade and sliver spells you cast have Cascade. Oh boy, you can pop off with this. Once this is cast, the next sliver spell you cast has Cascade. You cascade that into another sliver spell, and then you can cascade that into another sliver spell, and you can cascade that one into another sliver spell until you're stuck at a 1 cost or a 0 cost sliver, which to my knowledge there is no 0 cost sliver. So it really ends after you cast that 1 cost sliver. Then you exile your library and it gets shuffled. So, yeah, I'll admit, slivers are a little bit limiting. However, slivers do really play well off each other, so I do gotta put this in A. Alright, getting back on track after a quick bathroom break. Next we have Galto Stampede Tyrant, I believe. Basically, when it enters the battlefield, put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. Good news, yay! As long as you can cast it, or repeat the CTB trigger, you can put a bunch of creatures on the battlefield. Bad news, mono green. You're not going to be able to blink it. And while I guess you could reanimate it with certain green cards, I feel like it's just so limited. And you can only really do it once, and it costs so much mana for you to try to do it again. I like to say it's somewhere in B tier. I think maybe here. It can be done better. I think. I guess more instantaneously, it's better than Braids. However, I think Braids is better for the long term. Continuing on the dinosaur train here, we have Gishath's son's avatar. Vigilance Trample Haste. Whenever he deals combat damage to a player, reveal that many cards on the top of your library. Put any number of dinosaur creature cards among them. Be outfilled, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. This is a really good card. Issue, it costs 8 mana. And it only has 6 health, meaning that, yeah, you're going to blow up if you don't have some form of protection like Mithril Coat or something. So, what are my thoughts on it? It's pretty good. Good, but its high mana cost just holds it back from being S tier. I do think this is pretty good A tier, especially since dinosaurs like Galta, or dinosaurs on a spaceship or whatever can all just be mass casted with one card. It's pretty good. Good. I do think the first sliver's over this though, since first sliver, the Cascade gives you a whole lot of stuff too. But it also costs less. Next up, Goreclaw. Okay, this is a bit of a doozy here. As this cost reduction only refers to spells greater than that have power 4 greater. And when it attacks, each of them get +1/+1 against trample until end of turn. You're in mono green, so big creatures aren't exactly in short supply. The issue is that 2 is not enough for some of the really big creatures. So, what is my suggestion on something like this? I say that this is probably... I'd say it's probably D, or I think it might be C tier. You can get it out quicker than its Holly, and it does do something. However, do note that the reason why it's even on this list is because I went to a Reddit post referring to a bunch of cheating commanders, or commanders that you can cheat spells out with. That's where the majority of these commanders are coming from, as my knowledge on them is pretty small. But Goreclaw was there, and Goreclaw does have some cost reduction. Issue is, it doesn't have enough. So next, we have Grenzo. Goblin Rogue, legendary creature. Enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. Put the bottom card of your library into your graveyard. If it's a creature card with power less than or equal to Grenzo's power, put it onto the battlefield. There are ways of giving on. There are ways of putting creatures on the bottom of your library. The one that I can think of right off the bat is scrying, and I know for sure that red and black both have ways of scrying. So honestly, that's not a big issue, and this is repeatable. And the fact that it just has X in its cost, it just means that you can get some stuff done if you have enough mana. And not to mention, there's also ways of buffing Grenzo excluding this X cost. So if you exclude this X cost and plan on buffing it with like some artifacts and enchantments and whatnot, yeah, this is essentially a 2-cost commander that can get up if someone's not careful. So, so if I have to be honest, I think it's a pretty good A tier. I would put it, since it can be done and you don't have to tap it, I think it's probably right about here. Maybe over Animar. I'll put it over Animar, since you can get this out sooner, and the fact is, you can cast things for free. You can just do quite a bit. Okay. Next is Gyruda. This is a companion, if you want to have it as a companion. However, your starting deck can only contain cards with even mana costs. When it enters the battlefield, each person puts the top 4 cards of the library into their graveyard. Put a creature card with an even converted mana cost from among those cards onto the battlefield under your control. Okay, you're only doing this once, and you need to rely on other cards to put you to blink Gyruda. Which, okay, as a companion, you could probably pair it with something in white and do it that way. Or there's a bunch of cards that return things to hand. You can choose that if you're willing to spend 6 mana every turn. And all in all, there's just too few ways to really utilize Gyruda, in my opinion. And the fact that you also have to restrict yourself to even converted mana costs is pretty restricting, if I have to say so myself. But I do admit that part is the least damaging thing. There are plenty of cards that cost even converted mana costs. And so as a result, that's not the biggest issue. I think it suffers the same thing these guys do. But I think creatures are a little bit more powerful. And on top of that, it's not as restricting as these 3. I think this is probably the best C tier so far. Oh boy, this one's going to be a bit of a doozy here. Hans Eriksson. When it attacks, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, put it onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Defending player. If it's a creature card, put it onto the battlefield tapped and attacking defending player or planeswalker they control. Otherwise, put that card into your hand. When you put a creature card onto the battlefield this way, it fights Hans Eriksson. I'm honestly not so sure how I feel on it. On one hand, cool, top deck manipulation means that this part isn't the worst in the world. The issue I have with it is that last bit of text here. Hans Eriksson gets fought. If you want to really put a card onto the battlefield that's like a giant 11/11 Annihilator 3 Eldrazi, this is not a good card. But I do admit there are ways of making Hans Eriksson indestructible. So it has potential for being really good. And on top of that, it is an attack trigger, not a damage clause. So you're not doing this multiple times a turn unless you have more combats, which is good news. You're in red. You can give out extra combats. And in fact, Ansrag the Quake Mole is in red-green, and they can provide extra combats. It's simple as that. And you can honestly make it work. So I think Hans, given its reliance on other creatures or other cards to make it indestructible, I think it goes in the bottom of A tier. Next up, We have Heliod the Radiant Dawn. Enters the battlefield, return target enchantment card that isn't a god from your graveyard to your hand. Cool. Yeah, of course it doesn't show the other side, so I guess I might as well just Heliod the Warped Eclipse. Yeah. Spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each card your opponents have drawn this turn. This can go either really good or really bad. Like, it can go really good because, all my spells cost 1 less to cast. Now, all of a sudden, I can... This Eldrazi is all of a sudden really big. Big and scary, and all of a sudden on the battlefield. I don't think much needs to be explained here. This can go bad in the fact that you're giving a bunch of people card draw. I mean, yes, if they don't have something that gives them max hand size, they're going to have to discard that. And the fact that you also can cast your spells at flash speed, yeah, that's pretty good. Good, especially if someone's running something like Ristic Study or something. Pretty good, but it can also be pretty bad. Honestly, I'd put it in B tier here because it can go either way, and also it's cost reduction, not really true cheating. Alright, next is Henzi Toolbox Tor. Each creature spell you cast with mana value 4 or greater has Blitz. And Blitz costs costs 1 less for each time you cast your commander from the commands in this game. So, Henzi Toolbox Tor, albeit there are ways to get him out of the command zone, but they still require him be cast from the command zone in order for this to matter. And on top of that, those creatures are getting sacrificed at the beginning of the next end step. You have to blink them in order for it to work. And oh, look at that, you're not in white or blue. How are you ever going to blink them? All in all, I think this is a very limited card if you want to focus on the aspect of cheating out big creatures. So, I think it's honestly... I think I'll put it with underneath Goreclaw in C tier. I might actually... I'll put it above Atali in D tier. It is not good. Next up is Harrogast. Woo! Oh, I did not mean to do that. Whatever. When you cast a spell, you may exile your hand. You can do 3 cards. Draw 3 cards, and it has a merge, and each creature's spell you cast has a merge. Okay, this has some upsides and downsides. Upsides, you can turn really big creatures into even bigger creatures. Downsides, you're getting rid of big creatures. I don't think there's much else that needs to be explained there. Albeit, you can do quite a bit of things with this. So, I mean, I guess I could put it in A tier. However, I feel like that downside of having to sacrifice big creatures to get bigger creatures out is too is too downgrading, so I think top of B tier is probably a good place for it. Okay, next up, let me see, where were we? Emoti. Celebrant to Bounty. Spells you cast with converted mana cost 6 or greater have Cascade, and it itself has Cascade, and costs 5 mana. This is another aspect of really good or really bad. Up to you. Now, given that it's specifically 6 or greater, more than likely, you're going to be activating it only once each turn. Unless you have, but you are in green, so you have ways of just getting a butt ton of mana out there. Honestly, I think this is a B tier. Here, I think maybe it's above Harrogast. But actually, I think Harrogast is a little better, though. I think it's a wee bit better. Actually, you know what? This is better than Harrogast. Next up, Infamous Cruel Claw. This is S tier. When it deals combat damage to a player, exile top cards from your top of your library until you exile an online card. You may cast that card by discarding a card rather than paying its mana cost. And it's in black and red. A place where you can animate any creature cards you put into the graveyard, as well as just a bunch of stupid stuff you can do to give it extra attack power. Albeit, you do need to put quite a few cards that can be discarded in there, but hey, that's just deck building. This goes in S tier. On top of that, it's not limited to turn. You can cast this stuff at instant speed if they have flash or instants. And yes, it is just any non-land card. Instants, sorceries, anything that's big can be cast using Infamous Cruel Claw at on any of your turns. It is stupid good. Definite S tier. Next is Jalira, Master Polymorphist. Sacrifice another creature. Reveal cards on the top of your library until you reveal a non-legendary card. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest to the bottom of your library in any order. Or in a random order, I guess. So, yeah. This can be pretty good. I'll give you that. For one, it's in blue. There are multiple ways to untap this, just from that alone. And two, it's in blue, which means you have access to a variety of Thopters and other token generators. So, this sacrifice creature clause isn't the biggest deal in the world. And there's no other restrictions saying you can only do that once each turn or whatever. I honestly think that, yeah, this is pretty good. And non-legendary creatures, okay. There are a bunch of Eldrazi and Blightsteel Colossus and whatnot that aren't legendary that are still very big. Honestly, I think this is another S tier. Next up, Joyra of the Gitu. Exile a non-land card from your hand. Put 4 time counters on the exiled card. If it doesn't have suspend, it gains suspend. Cool. Cool. Just exile a non-land card from your hand. Put 4 time counters on it. Amazing. Zing. Time to put a bunch of big stuff onto the battlefield. Oh, jeez Louise. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that this is a pretty powerful card. If you can deal with these time counters properly. If someone is playing a proliferate deck, yeah, you're kind of screwed here, but if they aren't, go for it, buddy. Go for it. The only thing you're limited by is if they can counter your spells. And wait, you're in blue, you can counter them. So they basically have a tough luck. However, given that this is on a cooldown, on a time, it's on a timer. It is kind of limited in that sense. However, free is free, so I think I'll put it probably at the top of A tier. It's a pretty good card. Next up is Jin Gitaxias. Okay, so this is pretty powerful, I guess. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell with mana value 3 or greater, draw a card. Exile Jin Gitaxias and return to the battlefield. Transformed under its owner's control. Let's just go to images and get to this. Great synthesis. Yeah, now you basically, now after this is activated, draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand. Oh wow, that happens to be 7 or more. So, and then you have no maximum hand size, as long as you control a great synthesis. And, well, what do you know? There are plenty of cards out there that can also give you no max hand size. Turn all 9 Phyrexian creatures to their owner's hands, and you may cast any number of spells from your hand without paying their mana costs. It is pretty good. This is a powerful card. Then, since you're also in blue, there's a variety of ways to get more cards in your hand. It's not exactly a hard thing to do. So, I honestly think that this is another A tier. Probably a little less strong than the Aura guy, but he is definitely strong. So let's go over to Joda, Archmage Eternal. You may pay Wooburg rather than pay the mana cost for spells you cast. Okay, this is kind of a little bit more limited, but you are still technically cheating spells out. So as long as you have Wooburg, you can pretty much pay for any spell as long as you have a Wooburg. So let me see. Joda, I think, since it's a little bit more limited, I think it's just a proper B tier. Maybe a little bit over here. It's pretty good. Next up, wow, another Joda. Joda the Unifier. Legendary creatures you control get +X +S, where X is the number of legendary creatures you control. Whenever you cast a legendary spell from your hand, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a legendary non-land card with lesser mana value. So essentially, all your legendary spells have Cascade. Wow. And yes, legendary spell. It's not limited to creatures. I've seen this go off. It can get pretty busted. And on top of that, you're in Wooburg. There's not a whole lot of limits placed on you. There. And on top of that, this ability makes it so not only are you getting a bunch of spells, legendary creature spells for free, but they're also getting even bigger. I do think this is top of A tier. The reason why I don't think this is S tier is because you have to first cast a very large spell first, and yeah, that is still limiting. Next up, we have Kalia of the Vest. Another personal favorite. You basically can run Ishin in this one to get double triggers. There's, on top of that, angels, demons, and dragons are extremely large creatures out there. And all in all, there's a ton of ways to get double of these effects. You are limited on card draw, which is like the only bad thing. But given how many black tutors there are, yeah, you can go off with Kalia. I think it is also a tier though. I don't think it's as good as Joda, but I do think it is up there with him. Next is Kellen. Kellen the Kid, to be specific. When you cast a spell anywhere from anywhere other than your hand, you may cast a permanent spell with equal or lesser mana value from your hand without paying its mana cost. If you don't, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. This came out when plot was a thing, meaning that, yeah, wow, not only are you casting stuff for free with plot, but you're also getting more you may also get more permanents onto the battlefield as well. So, like, it is pretty good. Especially since there are ways of exiling cards and casting them that are in blue, specifically. I think there's some also in blue and white. So, I think this can be pretty good if used correctly. So, but I do think it is at most A tier. Here, I might put it underneath Gishath. I might have to build a deck in Architect and see what I can work with to just see if Kellen the Kid can go higher. So, yeah, now we go on to Kinesos. Priest of Thassa, what do you use? If you would scry a number of cards, scry that many cards plus one instead. Look at the top card of your library. If it's a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent creature card, you may put it onto the battlefield. If you don't put that card onto the battlefield, you may put it on the bottom of your library. Wow, and you even put green in there so that we have more options. And there's also a blue card that can turn the creature types of anything into a certain creature type. All in all, this is a powerful card. It is repeatable. And Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, and Serpent, while they are kinda icky in terms of how many there are, they still can be powerful. Honestly, I think this might be probably the strongest tribal card here. There are plenty of ways of scrying, so honestly, I think this would probably be the highest, the lowest, if anything. When it comes to this, but since it's a little bit limited in what it can do, but it is still powerful. That much I can say. Next we have Kiora, Sovereign of the Deep. Whenever you cast a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent spell from your hand, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is that spell's mana value. You may cast a spell with mana value less than X from among them without paying its mana cost. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Oh boy. I do not think this is as good as this guy. I already forgot his name. Apologies. But it can be good. It just it's the issue I have with it is that it's a cascade, essentially. You basically have to cast a really large spell to get a large value out of it. And so honestly, I think it given the fact that it's whenever, meaning you have a lot of mana, yeah, sure, you can get bigger stuff out. But I do think it's better than this. So, okay. Next we have Kodama, the East Tree. Whenever another permanent you control enters, if it wasn't put onto the battlefield with this ability, you may put a permanent card with equal or lesser mana value from your hand onto the battlefield. This is a really good card. Issue, it needs to have another permanent entering the battlefield before you can cheat out another one. On top of this, you can partner with another creature that can produce a bunch of mana. So honestly, I think this is a pretty good card. And as a solo commander, it's not the best. Given that it has to rely on others, I think it's probably at the bottom of A tier. But it is definitely still an A tier. Except it's Kona Rescue Beastie. I guess I should probably pull that up. Kona Rescue Beastie. At the beginning of your second main phase, if Kona Rescue Beastie is tapped, you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. This can be pretty good. It's not limited to really anything. It is just limited to permanent cards. And there are plenty of permanent cards that are really powerful. So, in my opinion, I think this is definitely an A tier, given that there's a ton of ways that you can tap him. I do think that it is a bit more limiting. But given how cheap he is, I think he is just pretty good. I think I'd put him maybe, if anywhere, maybe right here, since there's a ton of ways to tap him. And heck, Eladamari is something that can tap him. So you're basically cheating out two things with him with both of them on the field. Next is Loot. Loot, Exuberant Explorer. You may play an additional land on each of your turns, and then you look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control from among them, and put them onto the battlefield. And put the rest on the bottom in a random order. Okay. This is strong. However, it is still pretty limiting. But given the fact that that you probably will have 6 lands or something by this point in time, it means that you'll probably have this sorted out pretty good. The issue is that you can't really cast anything big very early on, so I guess it's pretty limited. I think it could have the potential of being an A. However, I think maybe putting it in B, especially since it has to tap and since it's mono green, there's not a really big way for it to tap. So next is Maelstrom Wanderer. Creatures you control have haste, and the only thing that cascades is this guy. They're always blinking him in blue. But yeah, that's basically it. That's his whole deal. Heal. He cascades twice, and then he's basically a haste enabler. I think this is obvious where this goes. Albeit, I will give him credit, he does cost 8 mana. However, I will also criticize that he costs 8 mana. And on top of this, commander attacks doesn't factor into Cascade, so it's just all in all. Why would you play that? Next up is Magda, the Brazen Outlaw. Other dwarves you control get +1/+0. Whenever a dwarf you control becomes tapped, trade the treasure token. You sacrifice 5 treasures, you search your library for an artifact or dragon card, put that card onto the battlefield, and then shuffle your library. Wow. This is powerful. Being able to search for an artifact or a dragon card means, hey, Blightsteel Colossus is on the table. Or, hey, I don't know, Balefire Dragon is on the table. Like, there are plenty of dangerous stuff you can do with Magda. And the fact that it costs 2 mana and is in red, which has plenty of ways of making treasures. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that this is an A-tier commander. Here, honestly, I think I'd put it above Kona. If anything. Okay, Malcolm, Alluring Scoundrel. When it deals combat damage to a player, put a course counter on it. Draw a card, then discard a card. If there are 4 more course counters on Malcolm, you may cast the discarded card without paying its mana cost. This can be really good, especially if you have some form of instant and sorcery manipulation to get cards back from your graveyard, so you're basically losing nothing by discarding it. I will say that this is limited in that it's combat damage to a player and it's in blue. Unless you have an artifact that gives out double strike that's in your deck, this is not going to work out to its full potential. So, if I had to say anything, and the fact that it just randomly has flash is a bit weird. But you could proliferate its course counters, meaning you only really need to discard 1 card or lose 1 card, and then wow, all of a sudden proliferate. You do not have to worry about course counters anymore. So yeah, honestly, Malcolm could be good. However, I think the fact that you can only really that this ability only really activates once per turn is just a bit of an oof. I'd say maybe it's... I'd put it underneath Galta, I think. I think it's... I think that's a good assumption. Marvo Deep Operative. I think it's pretty obvious that this is a powerful card. Albeit you are limited to mana value 8 or less. But albeit there are a whole lot of creatures and a bunch of powerful cards that cost 8 or less. And on top of that, I've also... Maybe this is a little bit of a biased opinion since I've seen how Marvo decks can play, given that I have a friend in Magic Club here at Western Washington University that has a Marvo deck and has gone off. Like, if you don't make sure Marvo is neutered, Marvo will go off. There are just plenty of stuff you can do. On top of that, since you're in blue, you can also make him unblockable using a variety of dirty tricks. definitely an A tier if I had to take a stab at it. However, since you're also likely to miss, it's like a hit or miss, I'd say it's maybe around Atali level. I think, given that I haven't really, that Atali does its job a little better, I think it's right below Atali. Next is Mael the Anima. This is a bit of an older card. As you can see, it doesn't have the legend border. But yeah, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature card with power 5 or greater from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest in your bottom of your library in any order. This can only really be done once per turn. It costs 6 mana to do. But it has a whole lot of upsides. Since you're only limited to power 5 or greater, cool, just chuck a bunch of stuff that's power 5 or greater in there. So, if anything, I'd say Niall is about A tier here, since it costs mana to work with, and there's not a whole lot of stuff in Naya that can really untap stuff. So maybe I'll put that under Kodama. I think it's definitely an A tier though. Oh boy, next we have Megatron. This is the part that really has the significant side, but so basically it's this here. At the beginning of your post-combat main phase, you may convert Megatron. If you do, you add this for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. Yeah, this can go off. Combine that with the fact that this is red, and on top, and there's 2 cards, and just the red-white combination alone that allows you to double this, which means you get double the amount of colorless mana. And if you want to know what Megatron's other side is, it is Megatron Destructive Force. And whenever he attacks, you may sacrifice another artifact. If you do, it deals damage equal to the sacrificed artifact's mana value to target creature. If excess damage would be dealt to that creature this way, instead that damage is dealt to that creature's controller, and you convert Megatron. So, yeah. You get a bunch of big artifacts, and Megatron all of a sudden becomes like a powerhouse at throwing out Eldrazi spells, or throwing out a Blightsteel Colossus and other big artifact creatures out there. There's just a ton of stuff you can do with Megatron. And there's just a bunch of stuff you can do with this ability alone. You can use Ishin, you can use Twin Flame Tyrant, you can use Gessa, you can use Aurelia to get extra combats. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do with Megatron to maximize the amount of colorless mana you get. And on top of that, Black also has some extra, yeah, you lose more life kind of things. So, honestly, given its color combinations and what Megatron can do and how many devastating colorless spells there are, not to mention, that's not even including the mana you can spend, I think this is an S tier. Or at least somewhat of an S tier. It does require a bit of setup in order to get it really going, but I definitely think S tier is where it rightfully should be. Marin of Clan Neltoth. Okay, whenever another creature you control dies, you get an experience counter. Beginning your end step, choose target creature card in your graveyard. That creature's mana, if that creature's mana value is less than or equal to the number of experience counters you have, return to the battlefield. Otherwise put it to your hand. So not only are you, so basically you discard stuff, put it into your graveyard, or are sacrificing creatures to something like, I don't know, Phyrexian Altar. There are plenty of stuff you can do. There's plenty of tokens you can sacrifice. There are plenty of ways to sacrifice those tokens to get more experience counters on it. There's plenty of work you can do with Murantel. Now, Toth, that doesn't require you to do really anything but mill your creatures. So, I have to say, this is probably another A tier. Here, I think I'll maybe put it above Jingataxius, since it does require a little bit of setup. But then again, so does Gitaxius, but it can go off. It has the potential to go off. Min, Wily Illusionist. Ooh, excuse me. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 blue illusion creature token with this creature gets +1/+0 for each other illusion you control. And whenever an illusion you control dies, you may put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to that creature's power from your hand onto the battlefield. So, just drawing your second card on, whether it be on other people's turns or on your turn, you're getting a bunch of illusions. And on top of that, there are probably other illusion creatures that you can use to increase this effect. So yeah, and since it's also a permanent, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff you can do here. You can pair this with Gitaxius as well, so honestly, if you want my opinion, I think this might be another S tier. Here, I put it at the bottom of S tier because I think it's just above Joda. It could probably be at the top of A tier, but what it goes for has so much more potential than Joda. Morophon the Boundless. This is an interesting one. It has cost reduction, but there are cards like Leyline of Mutation and someone who we've mentioned earlier, which was, I believe, Joda the Archmage, that can work with this ability, making it so you cast a bunch of spells for free. Where it be dragon spells. The only thing you're limited by is the fact that this has to be a tribal deck. Heck, no problem at all. There are plenty of powerful tribal decks with dragons, elves, etc. That this is definitely a powerhouse that you can use. It's essentially Dracogenesis, if you know what that card is, but a little cheaper and requires a little bit more setup. However, since those setup cards are cheaper than Morophon, Morophon is probably the better option to Dracogenesis here. So honestly, I think Morophon could go in A. I think I'll put it above. I think I'll actually put it like right underneath I'll put it above Kalia. This is a powerful card. It does require some setup cards. It requires some setup cards. I think it goes underneath Kalia. But it is still really powerful. No doubt about that. Next is Mr. Foxglove. Whenever he attacks, draw cards equal to the number of cards in the defending player's hand minus the number of cards in your hand. You can't draw any cards. This way, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. Okay. This is simple. Draw a butt ton of cards, and you basically can put any creature card you want onto the battlefield. You know, all you have to do is make sure that your cards are greater than the defending player's cards. However, this is an attack trigger, so you're only doing this once per turn. It is a little limited. Good. Needless to say, it's also in blue, which can get you quite a bit of card draw. So I think, if anything, this is probably at the top of B tier. It is powerful. Actually, it's probably slightly above the Amina one. But, like, I think it's actually over Kodama, if anything. Actually, over this. This seems good. Next up is the Narset Enlightened Master. Whenever she attacks, exile top 4 cards of your library. Until end of turn, you may cast non-creature cards exiled with Narset this turn without paying their mana costs. Cool! You're limited to just non-creature cards, so yeah, sorry, you can't play Blightsteel or any old big Eldrazi. But you can play large artifacts, troubling artifacts, or just artifacts and other spells that allow you to cheat other cards out. Because yeah, this is only limited to legendary creatures, but that's not to say there's other cards that can help you. And there's no mana restriction either, so honestly, this could work well. However, I think non-creature is a bit more limiting than normal, so I think it's probably at the top of B tier. Next up we have Nashi, Moon Sage Scion. When it deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of each player's library. Until end turn, you may play one of those spells that you cast a spell this way. You pay life equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana cost. It's essentially a thieving version of Atali. It's basically a mixture of Bolas' Citadel and Atali Primal Storm. And on top of that, it has ninjutsu, amongst other things. And there are certain artifacts that are colorless that will help you remain unblockable. So, if anything, I think it's probably a step down from Atali, wherever that is. Atali. There's Atali. So I think it has the possibility of being an A tier, but you are losing a bunch of life, and he himself doesn't have lifelink. So I think I'll probably put him right underneath Marvo. Maybe above the first sliver, or below the first sliver, since the first sliver I think is a little bit more consistent and can get more stuff out with less risk. And on that, but I guess that does bring up a good point, that this is also kind of more of a one-time deal. I think this is a good spot for it. Alright, next. Nira Wild Mage. Whenever you cast a spell, you may put it on the bottom of its owner's library. If you do, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This ability triggers only once each turn. Cool. So you can only do it once per turn, and of course you have to run a bunch of low cost spell instants and sorceries to really make the biggest impact here. I feel like there's a couple constricting factors with this card that makes me feel like I shouldn't put it in A tier, but at the same time, I feel like it's good enough to go at the very least in the bottom of A tier. So I think it's safe to say that this is, since it can only activate once per turn, but it can get pretty powerful, especially since you aren't really losing a whole lot of effects if you're playing an instant or sorcery. I think this is a good spot for it. Next is Ogier Castellum, Deepest Growth. When it deals combat damage to a player, reveal that many cards from the top of your library. You may put a creature card and or land card from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And when it dies, return to the battlefield tapped and transform under its owner's control. It just turns into a land that you can transform back into this. So overall, yeah. It's a combat damage trigger, so double strike and a bunch of other effects can help. It is mono green, so keep that in mind. And since it does have trample, that's another thing to note. And one thing to note is that you may put a creature card and a land card. It says and or, but really, you don't have another land card, or you get my point. It is very limited with its factors, and since you're not in red, you're not getting a bunch of extra combats. So I think it's I think this is a good B tier. Maybe right underneath Loot, but above this, since I feel since he looks at more cards than Little Marty. I feel like that's good. All right, next up, Pantlaza, Sun Favored. Whew. Whenever Pantlaza Sun Favored or another dinosaur enters the battlefield under your control, you may discover X, where X is that creature's toughness. Do this only once each turn. It's a May trigger, and of course, you can just wait until you get a bigger creature out in order to do this. So this can be a pretty good card. It is mainly used in dinosaur decks because of this clause, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is also the most popular, if not the second most popular, for dino decks. So honestly, I think and since it's a little bit more of a backline dino, and you can get it out earlier, I think it's definitely better than Gishath. I will say I think First Sliver is better than Pantlaza. Job update. Mainly because he can get more creatures out, and this is limited to only once per turn. Next up, Furforos Bronze Blooded. Other creatures you control have haste. It isn't a creature as long as your devotion rate is less than 5. You may play a red creature card or an artifact creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Yeah, this is this is powerful. It's the equivalent to a sneak attack. However, I do gotta say that it is limited because of this clause. There are cards, I think, that prevent this. I think there's one that came with Turkey or Dragonstorm. But I will say that this is definitely a limiting factor. Because, okay, you get one piece of value out of it. You're in red, so you have no recursion. Honestly, I think itself, Furfuros is C tier, if anything. I will give him credit, top of C tier. Here, if not bottom of B tier. It is kind of hovering in between these lines. Here. But C tier is looking a bit empty and B tier is looking a bit full. But I do admit this does have a lot of value, but by itself, it just doesn't work really well. Well, unless you it's just oof. It's just an oof. Next up, Rakdos, Lord of Riots. You can't cast a spell unless an opponent's lost life this turn. And it's flying and trample, and creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each 1 life your opponents lost this turn. Okay, already we're seeing a limiting factor here. It's limited by colorless mana, and it's in Rakdos. That tells me a lot of what I need to know already. Not to mention you need to cast other spells before you can cast the reduced spell. Actually, let me look at this one more time. Is it any spell? It's only creature spells, so that makes it worse. I think... You know what? I'll be nice. I'll put Furfuros in B tier. I think this is a C tier. It doesn't do well by itself. It is limited extremely and honest to like other creatures by colorless mana. It suffers the same problem that this does, except it's limited by creature spells, which are the big things that you want to get out. And also, it's harder to achieve that than the affinity for artifacts thing. So yeah, I can't really say anything other than that. Ramos, the Dragon Engine. So whenever you cast a spell, put +1/+1 counter on Ramos for each of that spell's colors. And you can remove it to add basically twice Wooburg. And but you can only activate that once each turn. This can be cheated out. Or this can cheat some stuff out. You get a total of 10 mana to work with. You combine that with any other lands you have, and all of a sudden you can just build up mana. And on top of that, this can get more of this. And on top of that, if you find a way to double activated ability triggers, I think this could just explode out of nowhere. You can use this with X spells or a bunch of different stuff. This is just a powerful card. The fact that it's in Wooburg is honestly just a bonus. Honestly, it might be on the same level as Morphon, if not maybe a little less. It does kind of take a little bit of setup, so I think I'll put it underneath this guy. Okay, next we have Saheeli the Gifted, the only Planeswalker on this list. Basically, it's this line of text that is the big thing. And wow, wait, that's a +1 ability. So all of a sudden, for +1, it is a terrifying ability. It's kind of on, I think it's a little bit on par with Oko Thief of Crowns if you play this correctly. And on top of that, you get to copy each artifact you control. Roll as it's -7. Imagine doing that, but with like a Blightsteel Colossus. That is terrifying. Combine that with the fact that there's a card that allows you to make everything you control an artifact. And yeah, this is a pretty cool card that can get pretty out of hand if you're not careful. You can use treasures with this. You can do a bunch of stuff with this. This is strong. Changed my mind. It's going in S tier, in my opinion. albeit I think it is a bit more limiting with its cost reduction. But the fact that it's just a strong creature, planeswalker, that can make it work. So yeah, let's go on and move to Satoru Umezawa? Satoru Umezawa, huh. Whenever you activate a ninjutsu ability, look at the top 3 cards in your library. Put one of them into your hand, the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. This ability triggers only once each turn. Each creature card in your hand has ninjutsu with this cost. Okay, this is powerful. Turn a 1/1 unblockable into a Blightsteel Colossus. I think I don't need to explain more. So, with that being said, I don't think I need to explain myself. Zephyrus of the Hidden Ways. Whenever one or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere, venture into the dungeon. This ability triggers only once each turn. Whenever you complete a dungeon, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. I'm not entirely sure about the whole dungeon mechanic thing. So I honestly don't know how many times this ability triggers. So putting creature cards into your graveyard might be a slower thing. I'm not entirely sure. I am not familiar with this commander too much. So, let me see. I think I'll honestly put it in a D tier for now, since I don't know how to make an extra tier here. Actually, wait a minute. Is there? I see. Oh wait, it traded places. I see. So that's how that works. So yeah, that is that's Zephyrus. Next is Shadowfax. Honestly, a really cool card for cheating stuff out. Like, you can just buff Shadowfax and put a bunch of creature cards. You find a way to get extra combats, and this can just turn into a nightmare. Like, just consider the fact that you can get +8/+8 from whatchamacallit, Colossus Hammer. Yeah, now you have an Eldrazi that you can chuck out, or a Blightsteel Colossus. I know I keep mentioning those two a lot, but those are really the biggest creatures I can think of right now. So I think Shadowfax does need some support. So I think A tier is probably the best place I could put him. And it is an attack trigger, so I think it's a bit more on par with Nashi a little bit. Maybe a little more like that. I think that, yeah, that looks good. Next we have Sidar, or Sidar, Jabari, Zalfir. If you attack with one or more knights, Sabari is in the command zone or on the battlefield. You draw a card and then discard a card. When it deals combat damage to a player, return target knight creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It's in blue. I don't think I need to repeat myself. There's a ley line that can change creature types. And then, of course, returning target knight creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Okay, if there's any big knights, cool. And if you give this guy first strike, I think it does, or double strike, I think he does have potential to be good. It does require combat damage though, so I think I think I'll put him right underneath Gishath. It feels a little bit more limiting with knights than something else. Okay, next we have Sisei, Weatherlight Captain. Yeah, this can only get up to 7. With this ability alone. But who's to say that she has to be limited by that ability? I mentioned Colossus Hammer, I'll mention it again. That would work with this. That all of us... Legendary permanent... this legendary permanent clause can basically be anything that's large. Ulamog, just as the first thing that comes off the top of my head. Because it's a large Eldrazi. And the fact that you're also tutoring for it, it's just a big deal here. I think it does require some setup. I think because of its setup, I think it might be just under Magda, since Magda I feel like is easier to trigger. Next we have Slimefoot and Squee. Enters the battlefield at attacks, create a 1/1 green sapling creature token. Sacrifice a sapling. Return Slimefoot and Squee and up to one other target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. Discard cards. Mill cards. Basically do a bunch of stuff. Get a bunch of saplings out there. All of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. You have big creatures on the battlefield. I cannot tell you how annoying it is for me to face such decks, because this thing is so strong. And you combine that with a Phyrexian Altar or anything, and yeah, that is bottom of, maybe a little bit higher in terms of S tier. I do feel like, though, that it is an S tier worthy card. Oh boy, we're coming down to our last creatures here, as you can see. Final line. So, Ur-Dragon. One of the second most popular commander out there. It's limited to Dragon Tribal, and it does cost a ton to get out. So, so even though it's like the second most popular commander in Magic, and has the most power, and has the most popular, tribal decks, I think, like, tribal deck style, dragons are, you get the point. According to EDH Rec, at least. So I honestly have to maybe put this here? Its mana cost is the really big thing, and the fact that it's in Wooburg, it's just too limiting, too constraining. But when you do get it out, you combine it with something like what's his name? Can't remember it. Let's go to EDH Rec. He'll probably show up down here. Miriam Sentinel Worm. Here we go. So yeah, I think this is a decent spot for Ur-Dragon. It's relatively high. Urania of the Unwritten. When it enters or attacks, look at the top 8 cards of your library. You may put a dragon creature card from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This is another good one. It's on par, I think, with Ur-Dragon, and I think it actually might be a tiny bit better. Since it's in the same color palette as Miriam, so you can cast Miriam, and I think you can just do a little bit more with Ureni, especially since it's a cheaper mana cost, 8 versus 9, I think. If I'm 7 versus 9, actually. So it's a 2 mana difference, which can be significant. And since it's an enter and attack, where you're putting a dragon creature card that you wish onto the battlefield, like, yeah, I guess, like, I feel like it's on par with Dragon in this kind of scenario. The Invictus is Mighty the Dire. Whew. Oh, I need to pull up image so you know what I'm talking about. This is an interesting one, as it chaos warps everything, essentially, except it forces everyone to sacrifice things, which is good, because this means that it bypasses indestructible. So this can deal with Blightsteel, Darksteel, Gods. This can deal with a bunch of stuff that wouldn't ordinarily be able to be targeted. So yeah, you do have to. It is also a target permanent, and you are limited to permanent. So when it comes to ramp, it is worth noting you should only have permanents in your deck, which is a limiting factor. And on top of that, you're forcing everyone to do this. So not only are you removing their stuff, which already makes you an annoyance, meaning you're already going to be the target. For a pricey commander, it's downsides, I think, with being a threat to the table, being a mana pricey commander. I think I can't give it any higher than B tier. And trust me, I love Invictus. I can't give it higher than B tier, though. I think maybe it can be run underneath Heragasts, because they have similar abilities. Victor, Valgavas Senestal. This is too limited. I'm going to give it right now. For one, you have to have at least 3 enchantments enter, or unlock a room, or fully unlock a room 3 times each turn to get a creature card from your graveyard to cheat out. And all in all, Victor, I think, is just too limiting as a cheat out kind of card. I think it goes in C. It's just costs too much mana to get it set up. I'll put it into D. D feels a little better. It just doesn't have what it takes to get properly set up. It is just too slow. Wilfred Mott, look to the start. At the beginning of your, you put a time counter in, then you may look at the top X card of your library, where X is the number of time counters on Wilfred Mott. You may put a non-land permanent card with mana value 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This is a limited card. Because 3 or less doesn't give you a whole lot of options, especially when the goal of a cheating deck should be to get the biggest creatures you can out of there onto the battlefield. Yeah, this just, I feel like I think this goes at the top of C tier. Actually, maybe underneath Rakdos, since I think Rakdos is a little better than that. Yeah, this is a popular one. Winota. Joiner of Forces. Whenever a non-human creature you control attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may put a human creature card from among them onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. It gains indestructible until end of turn. Put the rest of the cards on the bottom of your library in a random order. I think there's plenty of strong humans out there. I don't know if there are any big humans out there. So honestly, it's probably a more limited card, especially since you have to rely on a non-human to put a human out. It's kind of it feels a little bit like a more of a complicated setup. So I mean, I guess it could work out. Honestly, I think I'll probably put it in B tier. Like, it's not like an Impakal where you're creating gnomes too, but like even then, like it requires a non-gnome in that case, so it's barely comparable, I guess. I guess I'll put it underneath Malcolm, since that feels right. Next up is Winter. When he attacks, mill 3 cards in the beginning of your end step. You may exile any number of cards from your graveyard with 4 or more card types among them. If you do, put a permanent card from among them onto the battlefield with a finality counter on it. This is a bit more limited in its usage, but its good news is that you get to mill, you put more stuff in your graveyard, you activate Delirium a little bit more. Bad news. If you do that, like, it's a permanent card that comes onto the battlefield with finality counter on it on your end step. It's very limited in what it can do. So I think it's probably top of C tier, if anything. Okay, Idris, a very unique commander, being the only legendary creature that I know of that is in 4 colors. When it deals combat damage to a player, as you cast spells from your hand this turn, they gain Cascade. This is very limiting, because it requires you to play at instant speed, and it requires him to deal combat damage in the first place. However, that can be managed just by simply giving him double strike or activating extra combats. So, honestly, I think this is another limiting card. I think also goes into C tier. Here, underneath Rakdos. So, okay, next is Yenit, Cryptic Sovereign. When it attacks, reveal the top card of your library. You may cast it without playing its mana cost if its mana value is odd. If you don't cast it, draw a card. I think it's safe to say that this is a pretty powerful card. The only thing it's limited by is its color combination, because, well, you're not getting any extra combats, meaning this is only happening once per turn. But still, regardless of that, it is still, hey, cast free spell, go off kind of card. So I think it's a pretty safe A tier. I think bottom A tier is pretty good, considering all things considered. Next we have Yisa, which is the Wanderer Bard. Put a verse counter on it, and then search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost equal to the number of verse counters on Yisa. Put it onto the battlefield, shuffle your library. There are proliferate stuff in green, so this isn't the worst thing in the world. Albeit, it is limiting to find a creature card with converted mana cost 1. Except for Mana Dorks, which I guess is helpful, but still, kind of limiting in what you can do with it. And it does require a little bit of setup to get it going. So honestly, I think it's probably just underneath. I think it's just over Narset here. Here we go. Final couple. Zuladok, Void Gorger. Do I need to explain anything? Do I need to explain anything here? I don't think I really do. It encounters the same thing that the first Slivered encounters. So I think it's safe to say that it's on the same level as the first Sliver. It is a little bit more limiting, but it also is a little less limiting. So I think honestly these are tied for what they can do. Alright, next. Zimone, Mystery Unraveler. Whenever a land and control enters, manifest dread. If this is the first time this ability is resolved this turn. Otherwise, you may turn a permanent you control face up. Okay, yeah. So, there are plenty of Simic spells that allow you to play extra lands per turn. And on top of that, there are plenty of green stuff and blue stuff, for that matter, that allow you to manifest dread. So, honestly, if you want my opinion on this, Zimone is pretty powerful. I've honestly had it where Zimone just is terrifyingly deadly. Honestly, I think it definitely deserves S tier status. It is definitely a ridiculous powerhouse. Now here's another interesting one. Zerlin of the Claw, the oldest, probably the oldest card on this list. Search your library for a dragon card, put into play as though it were just played. Shuffle your library afterwards. The creature is unaffected by summoning sickness. Remove the creature from the game at the end of any turn. So yeah, there's ways of counteracting this this exile thing, but yeah, I mean it's a card. I just don't really know how viable it is nowadays since it's so old. Its text is a bit weird. So I'll put it in D since I don't really understand the whole gist of it, but it is technically a cheat card. And wow, this is almost 2 hours of recording so far. So let's get this final one over with. Zur the Enchanter. When an inverted attacks, you may search your library for an enchant card with a converted mana cost 3 or less and put it into play. If you do, shuffle your library. I think it's obvious to say that this is basically on the same level as this guy. Maybe a little bit over. But yeah, this is my tier list. I will put a description to the tier list so you can use this for yourself. If you want. Do keep in mind that some of this is a little bit of a biased opinion, as a bunch of these commanders I hadn't even heard of until today. So thank you guys. If you're still watching this, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you want me to do longer videos like this in the future, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.